Hello and welcome to the CadenCenter. It's time for another This Week in Sports. Today, each team is about 10 games into their NBA season, so I have here a list of takeaways from each team that I'm going to expand on and say how they will affect the future as the season goes on. So we start out west with the surprise of the season so far, the 10-3 Utah Jazz, and my little snippet for them is Lauri Markkanen has made a jump, but are they legit? So obviously Lauri Markkanen has been going crazy. We saw him in Europe representing his home country, Finland, averaging double doubles against some of the best players in the world. And now he's come over to the NBA and he's done the same. He's been shooting lights out. He's been playing some solid defense. And he has the Jazz out to a 10-3 record when everyone thought they'd win about 20 games or so. Now, as for whether they are legit, I don't think they are. I think right now they're a team that's hitting timely shots. Like when they need to extend a lead, they're going to hit it. When they need to get closer to a game or close in a game, they're gonna hit it. And I think that will eventually wear off, or they'll start pulling the plug on some of the better players' minutes and get those losses in. But they have definitely been they're a fun team to watch, and we'll see how far they go with their winning ways. Because currently they're the number one seed in the West. As we move to Portland, the Trailblazers, my little snippet for them is Damian Lillard is back and he has help. So obviously the past few years with the Blazers, it had been Dame and CJ and nobody else, no good wing defenders, no good interior defenders. This year, obviously, last year, CJ McCollum was traded. This year, they bring in Jeremy Grant, Gary Payton II, who hasn't played yet. They gave Anthony Simons the bag with the max extension. And overall, they just are clutch. They're kind of like the Jazz, but we just know the Blazers have been like this. I think Damian Lillard, Jeremy Grant, and Anthony Simons have all hit game winners already. So they're a very well-rounded team. Obviously, when they get Gary Payton II back, their defense is going to take a step up on the perimeter. Now, when you do get to playoffs, there is some concern with the interior defense with Yusuf Nurkic and the fact that they do play Grant at the 4 most of the time. But for now, they are very good. Dame looks like he's back to his all-star form after a couple injuries. He missed a couple games too, but he's back and looking good. So it should be a fun season for the Blazers. Moving on to the Grizzlies, I said Ja is a legitimate MVP candidate. I mean, he is. He's shooting over 40% from three, and I think everyone's been saying if Ja Morant develops a jump shot, he has a case for best point guard in the NBA. And right now, he's playing like one for sure. He's led them to a winning record despite them missing Jaren Jackson and Zaire Williams, who both will probably start when they get back. Dylan Brooks came back after missing a couple of games due to injury. And a guy you really got to talk about with the Grizzlies, and Ja would make sure you talk about it, is Desmond Bane. I mean, he's been simply elite shooting the ball. He started off rough 2 games, then he exploded for 30 a couple nights. The duo of Ja and Bane, they really just work so well together. Obviously, Ja wants to get the rim. Desmond can space the floor. And then Bane has also developed playmaking skills over the last couple of years. So they are a deadly duo, and I'm sure at the end of the season, Ja will be in that top 3, top 5 voting for MVP. Moving on to the Phoenix Suns, I said DeAndre Ayton is getting more touches and drama doesn't affect them. Everyone thought, obviously, with DeAndre Ayton getting benched in Game 7 versus the Mavericks last year when they were eliminated and all the controversy around their owner, that the Suns would maybe struggle out the gate. When I did a preseason prediction, I believe I had them as the 1 or 2 seed, and so far they've been playing like 1. Like I said, DeAndre Ayton is getting more looks, which will keep him happy because I'm sure he was very disgruntled coming into the season. And the signs of a team that is affected by outside noise doesn't show with them. They've been great so far. Obviously, it hurts to lose Cameron Johnson to injury, and Jay Crowder's refusing to play, so they're going to need some help with the power forward depth, but they do have some trade pieces to be able to maybe fix that, so we'll see where that goes, and hopefully they can be healthy come playoff time. Obviously, we know they want to rest CP3 throughout the season and let Devin Booker kind of run the show. As we move on to New Orleans, I said a healthy Pelicans team has a shot at the Western Conference Final. And there's a big emphasis on if they're healthy because Zion Williamson gets hurt a lot. Brandon Ingram gets the occasional injury. Luckily, they do have CJ McCollum, who doesn't really get injured that much. Herb Jones already missed a couple games. But if they are healthy, they have a legitimate chance at making the Western Conference Final, especially depending on the path they get. They're very hard to guard. You got CJ McCollum who can give you a bucket. Brandon Ingram will give you a bucket. Then you got Zion on the interior. And then you have a stretch 5 in Jonas Valanciunas. And then they slide in their defensive specialist, Herb Jones, at the 2 or the 3. And it's just like a perfectly formulated team when you think of play styles. So as long as they're healthy, as long as Zion is okay, they'll be very good and they'll be ready to compete. As we go next to the Denver Nuggets, obviously I'm not going to talk about the back-to-back MVP Nikola Jokic because we already know he's good. He's averaging, I think, nearly a triple-double this season. So I focused on Jamal Murray, and I said he still has a long way to go, but Michael Porter Jr. doesn't. Jamal Murray struggled out the gate, which makes sense. He missed an entire season and then some with an injury. and you don't expect him to become Bubble Murray again that soon. For Michael Porter Jr., man, he's been good. I think he's averaging 18 points a game or so. He's hitting his open threes. Obviously, you do want him to work on his defensive game because, I mean, he's 6'10". He has a lot of defensive potential. When you're 6'10", you can move along the wing like that. He's already a pretty good rebounder. But offensively, he's been great. That helps. The Nuggets are winning games where Jokic is only taking 12 shots. I mean, if the back-to-back MVP is only taking 12 shots, scoring like 15 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, I mean, you'll take that any day. That means you have a really deep team. And now we move on to some teams who may have some problems, some holes to fill, whether they expected these holes or not. And we'll start with the Timberwolves. Cat at power forward simply does not work on both ends, offensively and defensively. Let's start defensively. Cat is not a good perimeter defender. He does not belong out there. He's getting switched on to guards so often, or even teams that play a small ball for, like the Blazers, who I mentioned before. And it's not really his fault. He's a center. He's played center his whole life. He's not an Anthony Davis or an Evan Mobley or a Giannis that can step out and guard guys on the perimeter despite being nearly 7 feet tall. So that's a big problem. And, I mean, you can't slide him to center and put Rudy Gobert on the bench because you're paying Rudy Gobert $40 million and you just traded your entire future for him. And offensively, personally, I didn't think they'd have too many problems offensively just because Cat can stretch the floor and play make, which he has been doing. But it's really affected Anthony Edwards. He's even said in interviews, man, he sugarcoated it. He said, it's tough to dunk. I'm not 7 feet tall. I can't dunk over all these guys. But obviously he has 2 7-footers of his teammates in the paint and then 2 7-footers guarding those 7-footers. So it's a little tough for him to get to the rim and dunk and show off his slashing ability that we know all about. So it's really affecting him. Cat's scoring is down a little bit. That's because, like I said, he's playmaking more. Rudy Gobert, we know, is not a good offensive player. He's just there for defense. So they're going to have to figure that out. And then you have D'Angelo Russell just chucking up shot for shot, shooting poorly. So there's a lot to figure out for the Wolves because I thought they'd be a decent regular season team, but clearly not. And we'll see how they continue on. As we move on to a tanking team here, the Spurs. Greg Popovich's elite coaching status has been showing, but they're going to begin to fall off, and they already kind of have. So obviously, at the start of the season, the Spurs started like 5-3, which is pretty good, especially for a building team. Now they've lost a couple games. They beat a couple injury-riddled or tanking teams. But Pop has really done a great job with this young group because he's simply playing who's hot. Obviously, you have your locks to play like Jakob Poeltl, Keldon Johnson. But outside of that, whoever's hot has gotten in the game, whether it's Doug McDermott or somebody else that can score, and that's led them to win some games. And they're not a terrible team to watch. I know Pops at the beginning of the season, don't go to Vegas saying we're going to win anything, but they've been pretty good, and I'm sure they will start to lose and fall into the depths of the lottery. But so far, it's been pretty good. As for the Golden State Warriors, or as I like to call them, Steph Curry and friends, I said they may need to hit the panic button on defense and Klay Thompson. Let's start with Klay Thompson. He's been brutal, inefficient, shooting shots he simply can't make. And I can't blame the guys coming off an ACL and MCL tear or Achilles tear, two of probably the toughest injuries a player can suffer, especially back to back. But also, if you're going to give him these starting minutes and start him over Jordan Poole, he's got to perform. And it's definitely a big concern that he's not well because he was key in their playoff run last season. He played some solid defense, even if his shooting wasn't as there as it had been in the past when he was the best 3-and-D wing in the league. But without Klay, they're in trouble. And like I said, defensively, also, they've been just brutal. Not much good there. Obviously, losing Gary Payton the second hurts. They did pick up Dante DiVincenzo, who should be an above-average defender, but he's coming off the bench. Luckily, you still do have Draymond and Kevon Looney is a good rebounder, not necessarily an above-average interior defender. So Steph Curry has pretty much carried them to a couple wins, and that's why they're not all the way at the bottom. But they got to figure it out because Steph Curry alone won't win you an NBA championship. I don't care how good he is. Moving on to the Dallas Mavericks. I said Christian Wood is good. Luka is great and may end up averaging over 35 points per game. Luka Doncic is putting up video game numbers right now. Literally, like in 2K, when you simulate, he puts up 40 points and 10 rebounds. Well, he's got like 35 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, something like that. He is just crazy. Like, I have no words. That's how good he's been. He's on his way to an MVP. He finally came into a season in shape because he played in Euro Ball, and obviously the past 1 or 2 seasons he hadn't played in that, so he was a little out of shape and slow. But he's picked it up. He's been great. Christian Wood, their sixth man's been good. Maybe we'll see him in the starting lineup when it comes playoff time, matchups and all that. So those two have been doing well. Obviously, I have Spencer Dinwiddie who can go off. There still is some holes that they may need to fix, but they have the blueprint, and Luka Doncic will carry them until he needs someone else to step up. All right, last couple teams here in the West. We'll start with the Thunder. I just said same old, same old. And same old, same old. What I mean by that is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going off and they're losing. He just a couple nights ago, he hit what should have been the game winner with 0.6 seconds left against the Bucks. Then Lou Dort fouled Brook Lopez going for a lob tip-in. And then they ended up losing in double overtime. So obviously Chet's out. They probably want Victor Wembanyama because Chet and Victor would be one heck of a duo. But for now, it's the same Thunder team we've seen the last couple of years. They'll probably have a couple good months where you're like, oh, wait, are they going for the play? And then they'll slow down. SJ maybe get a magical injury. Giddey maybe get a magical injury. But there's not really much going on in Thunder Town. Moving on to the Clippers. I just said, Kawhi, what's going on? Now, we did see a tweet a day or two ago that he's been participating in 5-on-5 drills. He's been cleared for them. Which is good, but still, even Ty Lue admitted this is not load management. He's feeling soreness, he's feeling tightness, and that's a big problem because when I predicted the NBA Finals, I said the Clippers would win, but I also obviously did assume that Kawhi would be, or they'd make the NBA Finals, but I assumed Kawhi would be there, and without him, they're not going to win more than a playoff series. So that's definitely room for concern, and even if you're going to load manage him all the way, he still needs to get into some type of rhythm offensively. So luckily the Clippers, they're staying afloat around 500, above 500, but they need Kawhi back ASAP. As for the Rockets, it's still rebuilding season, so we shouldn't overreact, but I'm going to overreact a little bit here. Jalen Green may be a bust. I've not been a fan of Jalen Green since he came into the league. I think he's extremely inefficient. While, yes, he can produce highlights don't win championships. Jabari Smith Jr. has not been as good as Paolo Banchero or the guys drafted around him, so that's a big concern. But like I said, they are rebuilding, so maybe we shouldn't overreact. I said for the Kings, there's no hope. The Kings are struggling, even though they did pick up some new offensive pieces. Luckily, De'Aaron Fox is actually doing well, but they need to step it up. And as for the Lakers, I just said they need shooters. And to be honest, they need more than shooters. They need a completely new roster, but that's not going to happen. So for now, I'll just say they need some shooters. I don't know how they're going to do it. Obviously, you can trade Russell Westbrook for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, but Rob Pelinka doesn't want to do that. So who knows what's going to happen. But for now, the Lakers are 2-10. Tied for the worst record in the league with the Rockets, who I just mentioned, and it is not looking good for them. Moving on to the East, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. I just said they're the team to beat. I predicted them to win the NBA Finals, and so far, they've been elite. I believe they're 10-2 or 10-3, and that's with Giannis missing a couple games to rest, and Chris Middleton obviously hasn't played a game yet. This team is just unstoppable when they're healthy. Drew Holiday is maybe the best perimeter defender in the NBA. Giannis is probably the best overall defender in the NBA. Then you have Brook Lopez, one of the best rim protectors. When Chris Middleton gets back, you have a great wing scorer who can also play defense. And at shooting guard, you have Grayson Allen, who's a shooter. There's just so much for this team to do, or ways for them to win, that I don't see a way where they're healthy that they lose in the playoffs. Next for the Celtics, I said Tatum wants his MVP. He's been playing crazy. Jaylen Brown joined him last night. I think they both went for around 30 points. But it's clear that JT, he's really trying extra hard. It might also be the motivation for losing the finals last year, that he wants an MVP, and to add that to his legacy. We know he's a big Kobe guy, so I'm sure he's got the little Mamba mentality thing with him, trying to carry him through the season to make things happen. But yeah, he may be the MVP, and the Celtics may be ready for another finals run, or at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals and face the Bucks, which I think is a very, very high probability of happening. As for the New York Knicks, I said Jalen Brunson is legit as a first option unless the Knicks are playing a good team. So the Knicks haven't beat a team over 500, but they haven't lost to a team under 500. Their point differential is almost even. Everything about them is like mid. Like their record, they're the middle of the pack. They're 500. Like there's nothing extra. And you know, a team that only beats low teams can make the playoffs. Saw that with the Bulls last year. They really only beat bad teams. They still end up with the 6th seed. So I guess, but I mean, Julius Randle, he isn't himself from 3 years ago, so there's a concern when it comes to that. But like I said, Jalen Brunson has been good. He's kept the turnovers down. He's been shooting well. I'm sure the Mavericks miss him. And so yeah, we'll see where the Knicks go, but there are still a lot of question marks. As for the Hawks, DeJounte Murray and Trae Young look good. I love this duo. I've been a fan of DeJounte Murray since he was with the Spurs when they were tanking, because he was a point guard who was good, but he was like defensively focused. He wasn't a great shooter. You don't see that much these days. But him and Trae are such good duo. Obviously, Trae hasn't taken as much off-ball duties as I thought he would. going into the season. Obviously, they're not on the floor together all the time, scattered minutes to keep a playmaker out there. But I do like the duo. I think in the playoffs, it will work. They still have, obviously, John Collins, Clint Capella, a lot of depth on that team. And they can make a run as long as DeJounte and Trey are playing well. Now for the Wizards, I said forever stuck in the middle. It's another year of the Wizards. Oh, they go on a little win streak start the season. They're losing again. There's just not many places to go. Bradley Beal's back in trade rumors with the Lakers, although we all know it won't happen or he won't go to any team. But still, it's just the same as it's been the last 3 seasons for the Wizards. It's kind of like the Thunder. They're just stuck in the same spot with nowhere really to go. Move on to a team who isn't stuck in the same spot, though. Their only direction is up. I said Donovan Mitchell is back. Him and Darius Garland are Eastern Conference level backcourt. Now, Darius Garland has been struggling, but it hasn't mattered because Donovan Mitchell has been insane. He's been scoring the ball at will. He's been making up, like I said, for Darius Garland's poor start. And Darius Garland was injured to start the season. You might want to give him a pass on that. We know what he can do when he's healthy. And I'm sure when they both get back, they'll be very good. Obviously, Karis LeVert starting small forward. Don't know if I like that. There's a lot of defense lacking. Luckily, they do have multiple interior defenders, but I'm sure they want Isaac Okoro to maybe step up, hit some three-pointers, and be able to get the starting spot over LeVert. But we'll see where that goes. Still 70 games to develop that stuff. For the Raptors, I said playoff lock. I feel like every year I put the Raptors in the play and then they make the playoffs. So I'm going to say right here, go back on my prediction from a little bit ago, and say they're going to make the playoffs because they just win. And Nick Nurse is probably the best defensive coach in the NBA. They make your star take 5 shots, and they'll make some random guy who's like the 8th man on your depth chart shoot 20, and obviously he's going to miss them, and you're going to win the game. So just the way they play defense and the weird amount of length they have, they're running Scotty Barnes at point guard, it just makes them like tough and weird to beat. And they're kind of the opposite of this next team, the Bulls, because I said the Bulls, they need power forward depth, because they do not have a single power forward. They'd rather play 4 guards and their center Nikola Vucevic over playing one of their below average power forwards, and that's not good. They've already lost a couple games because of it, and they just need to figure it out because they're not going to win a single playoff game, especially to face a team like the Bucks again, if they don't have a secondary lengthy big man alongside Vucevic. As for the Hornets, they're another team I said that was stuck in the middle, but Dennis Smith Jr. has had a little career revival here, and he looks really good. He's been scoring the ball, playing defense. He had a near triple-double earlier in the season. So, I mean, that's a good sign. But there's just not much for this team to do. Maybe they can make the play-in again, but they'll lose if they do. It's a struggle in Charlotte, and they definitely need something to happen to turn things around. For the Heat, I just said I'm confused because I thought they'd be a regular season juggernaut again and probably make a playoff run, but they're just not winning some games that I'd expect them to. I know Jimmy Butler is kind of get through the regular season. All you need to do is win 16 games when it comes to the playoffs before you get eliminated. It just hasn't happened. I don't know. They definitely need to go on a little win streak here. I think they definitely do want to be a higher seed considering how stacked the East is. That home court advantage will really play a factor this year. And hey, maybe Jimmy will step in the playoffs like he has always. Maybe this is an overreaction. It's just what the Heat do. But for now, I'm a little concerned and confused about the Heat. Moving on to another contender. I'm going a little bold here. I said James Harden is washed and injured, which isn't a bold take because he's injured, but the wash part. And I said this simply isn't going to work. James Harden is not a championship level point guard right now as like your main guy. Tyrese Maxey looks better than James Harden right now, even before the injury. Joel Embiid, he struggled out the gate, but now he's playing well. I don't think he's going to put up enough numbers to win an MVP and get it back after losing it and coming in second the past 2 years. But the 76ers, man, they're cursed or something because you got the Kawhi shot a couple of years ago. You get Ben Simmons, your starting point guard, scared to make a layup, and then you lose to the Hawks a couple of years ago. So they've got a lot of holes and things to still figure out. Even with the acquisition of PJ Tucker, who we thought, okay, that's a good move, that adds some grit, but I'm just not a Philadelphia 76er believer. All right, last couple teams. The Brooklyn Nets. I said Ben Simmons is scared to play basketball, but they might be better without Kyrie. So Ben Simmons, obviously, we already knew. Maybe some people already knew. He wasn't going to score much, and he's honestly passed up so many open layups, pass the ball to KD or Kyrie so they can chuck up a shot that's impossible for them to make. As for the Kyrie part, obviously he's been suspended, and we don't know how long he's going to be gone, probably longer than the original 5 games. But so far without him, just strictly basketball-wise, they've been great. The ball has moved a lot more. Obviously, they've had to go deeper into rotation, which obviously was pretty thin. But you do have guys like Seth Curry, Joe Harris, who can score. So they've won a couple games without Kyrie. I believe they have over 500 record without him. So we'll see. Obviously, KD can win you games, but we'll have to see. I'm sure their roster will shake up a little bit, whether that's involving Kyrie or not. But they definitely got some things to figure out. For the Pacers, I said Benedict Mathurin is must-see TV. For a rebuilding team like the Pacers, Benedict Mathurin is perfect. He is simply getting buckets. He's had a 30-point game, a lot of 20-point games. He's shooting efficiently, near 40% from three, around 45% from the field. And that's a good sign. Him and Tyrese Halliburton could be a real threat in the future. Obviously, we know the trade rumors, them with the Lakers, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. Maybe they'll get more pieces in that deal if it's expanded. But for now, if you're bored and there's no good games on, you don't think, but you see the Pacers playing, tune in and watch Benedict Mathurin go to work. All right, last two teams got the Pistons and Magic. We'll start with the Pistons. I said Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey are the future, but not the present. Cade Cunningham has not taken a step this season that I thought he would yet. He has missed a game or two, I believe, with injuries. Jaden Ivey has been playing okay. I was a big Ivey guy. I thought he may win Rookie of the Year. But like I said, Benedict Mathurin and Paolo Banchero, who I will mention in a second here, have been a little better. So they've got some steps to take, but I'm sure they'll get a lot more games under their belt, and maybe they will improve. But for now, I know there are rumbles of maybe they'll make a play-in run. I don't think that's going to happen. Last team, the Orlando Magic, with the probably will be Rookie of the Year. I know it's a little early to call it, but the way he's been playing, Paolo Banchero may have one of the best rookie seasons ever. And I mean, he might. The guy's giving you a double-double every night, 20, 30 points. I thought maybe he would struggle a little bit because there's a lot of young guys in Orlando that they probably want to get touches to. Obviously, you also have Mo Bamba right behind him. But right now, he's been great. The Magic obviously haven't been winning, but they're rebuilding. They're rebuilding for a long time, but they'll get it eventually. So for now, for them to see Paolo Banchero go off like the Pacers have seen Benedict Mathurin, it's a good sign. And yeah. So that is all the NBA teams, my takeaways from them so far from the first 10 games. I'm sure things will change in the next 10 games and beyond that. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Bye.